Welcome to episode 3 of Square Table Conversations, where we talk about topics that matter. And today, the topic that we're talking about is it better to rent a house or buy a house? So, what do you guys think?
I personally feel that having an own house is always better, and it depends. I don't think I'm for buying a house. I'm more for like if you are planning to construct your own house or something like that. I'm for that. For personal use, I feel constructing your own house is always better. I'm not the financial angle at all.
I look into the financial angle and just say, I think it depends on each person's financial, condition or position. But for me personally, I think buying a house and having a house for yourself makes more sense than living in a rented place.
If you're living in a big city like a metropolitan city, if you prefer doing that, so it depends on each city. If you're paying rent in those cities, sometimes the rent that you're paying and the amount of like EMI that you'll be paying to the loan that you take to buy a house or construct a house will be equal, or maybe the rent will be less than the EMI that you're going to pay or something like that. So based on that, I think we need to decide whether we need to rent a house or we need to buy a house. So personally, I feel like if you're staying in a city for if you're planning to stay there for more than like 20-30 years, then I think it's wise to buy a house or construct.
So, I personally feel like renting a house is better. Mainly because obviously like buying a house is a huge financial burden at a single go. Indians especially, like they have this rooted in them that they need to buy their own house at any cost, and they're willing to go to like any extent for that. Like they're willing to take a loan, pay the EMI for the rest of their life, but they need to buy a house at any cost. Whereas they could have lived a comfortable life if they just rented a house. They could live a better quality life without a loan, without that whole burden in their mind.
I mean, it makes sense whatever you're saying, but I mean, if someone who's in a transfer job, they can't stay in a place, that time renting makes sense. And if you have a corpus, or if someone actually, people dream of having a house, if they're able to build that corpus, I feel it's always better to like buy a house, because it kind of creates, it's not only for one lifetime is what I feel. A house can be kept for so many generations can use it, and you can make it your own. Like I feel it'll become a home rather than a house when you're actually buying or constructing a house, and you'll have a kind of safety. Like it's not, if I'm talking when you don't have to keep paying the loan, if you're wise enough to repay your loan earlier, like in a short period of time, or if you don't take a loan for constructing a house, if you have that much money, I feel that it'll give you that peace of mind. You don't have to keep every month I have to pay this rent. There won't be that commitment that you'll keep having every month. So once you have a house, it's very comfortable. For example, you get a house from your father or something. You don't have to keep paying the rent every month. So you'll be very peaceful.
So one, you said it's more of a generational thing. You're talking from a point of view where you get the house, you inherit it from your parents or something like that. So right now we're moving towards a kind of a society where people don't even have children anymore. Again, I'm not saying everyone, but that's the kind of society we're going towards. So in that case, there's no aspect of I want my future family to have this, because there's no picture of future family there. So in that case, that house which you bought with your hard-earned money is going to go to somebody, some stranger in the future. So yeah, that's the point that I had.
Okay. Talking about modern age and modern thinking, right? If you think of couples not having children and stuff, fine. Let's leave. Let's talk about bachelors who grow old. Let's talk about after retirement, not old age. Would you want to stay in a rented place and still have to work for to pay your rent because you don't have a place to live in? Or would it be an easier option for you to already have had a house, you just have to live there, and it's easier because rent. If you actually look at rent point of view, now somebody else owns the house, and rent is not going to be fixed. It has to increase, and that increases according to inflation. And when you come to a rented place, you'll have to keep moving out, right? You can't just stick on to a place because there is a law in our country where if you stay in the house for longer than 7 to 10 years, I think 8 to 10 years, right? The person who stayed there has, the right to take over the house. So fearing that, the owners usually, try and get new tenants instead of the rented place. So
And another thing is when you stay in a rented house, I feel the owner will have a lot of restrictions.
say if you're a bachelor, there are some landlords who say
No bachelors.
no bachelors. So what are they supposed to do? Just I don't know. Okay, I don't want to say something. yeah. You can't do stuff like that, right? Here in India. So instead of going through all that trauma, every 8 years, let's keep it at the max. 8 years, keep shifting is a pain. If you're planning on retirement, you know a place that you're going to stay for the rest of the time that you have, right? Buying that house, I think that makes sense.
There's an advantage to buying or constructing a house as well. Like people construct and then give it out for Airbnb, or they make a business out of it. So there are both. I think there are both advantages and disadvantages. But mostly the value of the house keeps depreciating.
Yeah, if you
Another thing is like if you have a land and you've got an inherited house, the price of the land would have increased
Yes.
over a period of time. That's also investment. Like
Very common in Bangalore, where builders take permission only for, like, for example, 4 floors, but they end up building 6 floors or 7 floors, or they just add on to the base
Right.
and they keep going up.
right.
So now the fourth, no, they've taken permission only for 4 floors. So
Yes.
5, 6, 7 is illegal,
Yes.
not permitted,
Yes.
and they've built the base only for 4, like the basement, and there's a chance that something could happen. Like, not saying the whole building will collapse, but there are problems that could arise.
True.
And people who don't do proper research or background, they don't know the full information,
True.
they could end up buying
Buying that house,
houses in
yes.
that. And the thing is, the builder escapes once they have given the money and people have registered it under
Yeah.
their names. The builder is not held responsible. Even if you try to reach out to him, even if you try to file a complaint, whatever it is, you have given your money and now it's gone. If you had rather just stayed as a rental person in that house, you could have easily shifted somewhere, moved your base somewhere else. But now you cannot do that. You have put in your leg and now you're stuck there forever.
I think that's the problem with buying an apartment, like a house in an apartment. But because even after you have a house in an apartment, for example, you have to keep paying that maintenance fee. That is again like a fixed
Yeah.
thing that will keep going. That is almost like a rent.
Yeah.
In few of the big apartments, I feel that maintenance cost will only be high. On the other hand, having your own house that is like you've constructed it like somewhere else, that is better. Buying a house in an apartment, I think it has a few. It has a lot of drawbacks, and it's better you can actually rent it only.
In conclusion, I think what we can say is I that buying a house makes more sense than renting out a place. If you are somebody who doesn't like taking the risk of venturing out in whatever age you are in, and just moving around places. I'm not a person who's just can go wherever I want. I found my place here. I want to live here. I want a house here. That's how I am. So again, I think it's like a personal choice. So however you've lived all your life and however you want your life to be post retirement, post whatever, right? It's your choice. If you want to buy a house, good investment. Rent a house, good investment. Left to you.
Yeah, like she said, I felt like if you're a person who has a transfer job, all of those things, it's obviously not feasible to keep buying a house. But actually buying or like a land and constructing a house or something like that, actually I feel kind of makes sense, owing to the fact that the land is a good investment, and even if you rent it out to someone else later, you keep getting that rental income.
Yeah, so if you're planning to stay in a place for like 20 to 30 years, then definitely I think buying a house or constructing a house is a very good idea. Again, as I said in another point, maybe we can make a business out of it. If we don't really plan on staying there, after maybe after 5 years, if we think that okay, now I want to travel, I don't want to stay here, maybe I'm not staying in that house for more than 2 weeks in a month or something, then maybe then it's wise to make it into a business also. So it will not go for a waste even if you buy it.
Right.
Another thing about renting a house is tenants keep changing. They have to maintain the house in very different ways.
Yes.
You cannot, like, there'll be like a history associated with the house and all. Allergies and everything. You don't know how that previous family would.
I mean,
should
that's why they
stay.
do all homas and all. No?
Yeah, it keeps changing. Maybe
That's a very
kid has
different take.
scribbled on the
I mean,
wall.
that's why you take the
That's-
deposit amount.
That's the reason why usually when tenants move out, they paint the
Paint
house
the
and
house.
all.
They paint.
Always.
Yeah.
That's why the
So-
deposit amount, na?
I would like to conclude with the point that yes, I agree. It's okay to buy a house if you're staying in the same place for a long period of time. Like you've stayed there for 8 to 10 years, and you think in the future you are going to stay in that single place. Okay, agreed. It makes sense to buy the house. But if you're just looking to if you're just looking for something, if you buy a house just for the security sake of it or something like that, you could rather keep that money, invest it, and you would have a big enough corpus by the time you retire, and that itself would be the sense of security for you. And at that point, you can buy a house or you can do,
I feel mostly we, like, as human beings, we feel that stability, security when you don't have to. There's no doubt about okay, today I'll be here like another month
I have
or
to look
another
for
year.
a
I have to
new
look
place.
for another place. You have that thing that okay, this is my place.